Have you ever found yourself growing increasingly irritated by someone you once loved deeply? A partner, perhaps, who was once your best friend, but as the years have passed, you've started to feel more and more distant from them? If you're in a long-term marriage or relationship, you might have experienced this too, especially as time and circumstances change. But why does this happen, and how can we navigate these feelings? In today's video, we'll be diving into the surprising reasons why some women begin to resent their husbands as they get older, the emotional and practical struggles that lead to this shift, and what can be done to overcome them. You'll hear from real-life stories and gain valuable insights on preserving happiness in relationships during the later years of life. If you've ever wondered why these feelings arise, or if you're searching for ways to reconnect with your spouse, this video is for you. Make sure you watch until the end for tips that could help you reignite the bond that may feel lost. Before we begin, I would appreciate it if you like this video. You can help me continue to spread the old age lesson. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like this video, please comment number 1. If you don't like it, comment number 0 to let me know, so I can make a better video for you. Now let's get started. This situation has left me in a constant state of frustration and sadness, gradually taking a toll on my mental health. I found myself sinking deeper into depression, relying more and more on medication just to get through the day. In my heart, I know that I want out. If I could find a way to divorce him, I would gladly do so, leaving him with all our assets and walking away to live the rest of my life independently. But at over 60 years old, divorce isn't a simple solution. The stigma around it, especially at my age, is overwhelming. If I were to make a public issue of it, I would become the laughingstock of the neighborhood. The judgment, the gossip, the ridicule, it's all too much to bear. So despite how badly I want to leave, I've had to let go of that hope, resigning myself to a life I don't want. My children have all reached successful positions in their careers. They hold managerial roles, and I know a divorce would not only cause them personal embarrassment but could potentially harm their professional standing. I cannot bring myself to cause them that kind of distress. The thought of the ripple effect, a tarnished reputation, career setbacks, the shame they would have to endure, keeps me silent. I dare not even bring up the idea of divorce to my husband. The consequences are simply too severe. In the quiet moments, when I have time to reflect, I find myself questioning why I've developed such intense resentment toward him. I can't help but feel a deep-seated loathing whenever I look at him, a feeling that even affects my appetite. The mere sight of him sometimes turns my stomach, and I lose my desire to eat. I wonder how things have come to this. How did I end up in this place where I can't stand the person I've spent most of my life with? From the beginning, my husband has always been a rough man, and over the years, he hasn't changed. Since our early days together, he has always handed over his paycheck to me, entrusting me with the responsibility of managing our finances. He's never been interested in taking on any household chores, leaving all of that to me. I've always shouldered the burden of running the home, cooking, cleaning, managing everything. When our children had families of their own, they were both busy with their jobs and raising their little ones. Out of compassion, I offered to step in and help with the grandchildren. I knew how much they needed the support, and I took it upon myself to care for them while they worked, ensuring they didn't have to worry about their kids. From the moment they were born, both of our grandchildren have been under my care, raised by me while their parents focused on their careers. Even though my husband lives under the same roof, he has never lifted a finger to help with anything. I was the one who had to do everything: cooking, cleaning, and taking care of the kids. It felt like there was no time for myself, no time to rest or recharge. When I became overwhelmed, I would hope that he would step in and lend a hand with the children so that I could have a break, even just for a little while. But he never did. He saw how tired I was, how much I was juggling, and yet he just sat there, glued to his phone, indifferent to my struggles. He lives a carefree life. He wakes up, watches TV, eats, and sleeps, and that's the extent of his responsibilities at home. He doesn't do a thing to help me, and I've become furious. We argue frequently, and I often scold him for his selfishness. He knows how hard I work and how tired I am, and still, he won't do anything to lighten my load. Instead of acknowledging his lack of contribution, he turns the blame on me, telling me that I'm creating my problems by taking on so much responsibility, that I'm the one who brought this hardship upon myself. His words are infuriating, and I feel like screaming at him to leave, to get out of my house for good. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. But he refuses to help, and I'm left to endure it all. After raising the grandchildren until they were old enough to go to school and no longer needed my care, I thought that finally, I would have some time to live for myself. I envisioned traveling, taking a break, and rewarding myself for all the years I had sacrificed. I dreamt of visiting places I've always wanted to see and having the freedom to do whatever I pleased. But just as I was beginning to make those plans, fate intervened. My husband's health took a serious turn for the worse. His chronic smoking caught up with him, and he was hospitalized with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. My husband has always been a heavy smoker. He smokes at least a pack a day, and every morning, without fail, the first thing he does is light up a cigarette. He enjoys it before even brushing his teeth or washing his face. He refuses to spend money on quality cigarettes, always opting for the cheapest, lowest quality brand. I've told him countless times that smoking so much and using poor quality cigarettes is incredibly harmful to his health, and that he needs to cut back or at least switch to better cigarettes to reduce the risk. But he's stubborn, unwilling to listen. He insists that he would rather smoke cheap cigarettes than reduce his intake. No matter how much I plead or try to reason with him, he does exactly what he wants, refusing to acknowledge the damage he's doing to his own body. Meanwhile, his health continues to decline rapidly, largely due to his persistent smoking habit. Every night before bed, he coughs uncontrollably, his fits so violent that they unsettle me, often leaving me in a state of worry. At first, I didn't think much of it. I had grown used to the occasional cough as part of his routine, something that would pass once he settled down to sleep. But one night, everything changed. His coughing was harsher, deeper, and lasted longer than usual. I tried to ignore it at first, telling myself it was just another coughing spell. But this time, the coughing was so intense that he seemed to be struggling to breathe, and his face turned bright red with effort. The veins in his forehead bulged painfully, and I could see the panic in his eyes. It was clear something was wrong. My heart raced, and in a panic, I quickly called an ambulance, urging them to get him to the hospital as soon as possible. At the hospital, after a thorough examination, the doctor diagnosed him with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. The doctor explained that his lungs were severely damaged and that he would need to be hospitalized for treatment. In no uncertain terms, the doctor warned my husband that if he continued smoking, his life would be at risk. The doctor's words were firm and serious, urging him to quit smoking immediately. My husband nodded in agreement, promising to quit and make changes for his health. But as soon as the doctor left the room, I saw my husband's resolve fade. He would find sneaky ways to keep smoking. If I hid his cigarettes, he would go down to the convenience store, buy a new pack, and retreat to the bathroom to smoke in secret. I couldn't help but feel frustrated and angry at his blatant disregard for his health. How could he act so recklessly, especially at his age, just over 60? I would scold him, asking how he could be so careless about his life. In response, he would shrug and say something dismissive like, "I've lived long enough, what's the point of living without smoking? If I can't smoke, life isn't worth living." He seemed indifferent to the consequences of his actions, and his lack of concern extended to me as well. The secondhand smoke he subjected me to made it hard to breathe, and I hated being forced to inhale it daily. I once read an article online that said secondhand smoke is even more dangerous than actually smoking, and that knowledge deepened my resentment. I resented how his addiction was affecting my health. We had argued countless times, trying to get him to stop smoking, but all those attempts had been in vain. In his younger years, despite smoking heavily, his breath had still been fresh and tolerable. But now, in our older years, even his breath reeked of smoke, and the smell was overwhelming. I couldn't stand it anymore. His smoking had affected him in other ways too. His teeth were stained yellow from years of nicotine, and it wasn't just an unattractive appearance, it was a sign of his negligence. Even though I pleaded with him to brush his teeth properly, he would refuse. Whenever he spoke to me up close, the stench of his breath made me feel nauseous, and I found it hard to even look at him. Over the years, his snoring had become progressively worse, and now it was so loud it kept me awake every night. I would ask him to sleep in the living room so I could get some rest, but he refused. He insisted that the main bedroom was more comfortable, and he wouldn't budge on that. I tried to retreat to the living room, but every time I grabbed my blanket to leave, he would pull me back, not letting me go. If I insisted on leaving, he would start a loud argument, his voice echoing through the house and disturbing the entire neighborhood. I didn't want to fight with him, so instead, I would stay in the bedroom, enduring sleepless nights next to his relentless snoring. Night after night, I barely managed to sleep, and my rest was limited to short naps during the day. This disrupted schedule was taking a toll on my health. The constant exhaustion left me drained, both physically and mentally, and I knew that this situation couldn't go on much longer without severely affecting my well-being. Whenever I feel discomfort, it only intensifies my feelings of resentment toward him. I grow to despise him more with each passing day. I can't stand that he only seems to care about his own needs, completely disregarding how his actions affect me. In the past, even when he would sometimes get lazy about personal hygiene, he never really smelled bad. But now, as he's gotten older, the scent of age clings to him constantly, and it's hard to ignore. He is aware of the smell, but he simply doesn't care to address his hygiene. Every time I try to encourage him to take a shower, I have to repeat myself again and again before he finally listens. It's as though my words do not weigh at all. He also tends to neglect brushing his teeth, and he often goes to bed without washing his feet, which leaves the bed reeking of foul odors. The smell of his feet becomes so overpowering that, if he skips cleaning them or brushing his teeth before bed, I'm left with the unpleasant task of washing the bed sheets and pillowcases the following day just to rid the room of the stench that has seeped into everything. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. I have a few friends who are around the same age as me, and their husbands are just like mine, growing more unkempt and careless with age. Whenever we gather, it often becomes a moment for all of us to vent about our husbands. We share our frustrations and burdens, and in doing so, we manage to make each other feel a little better, knowing we are not alone in our struggles. When I was younger, I always envisioned a future where my husband and I would grow old together, living happily side by side until the very end. But now, as the years have passed, I find myself increasingly repulsed by the idea of spending another day with him. I no longer want to look at his face every morning. I'm not even sure if this feeling comes from me or him, but I do know that each day feels like an unbearable struggle, as though I am being punished. I feel as though I'm trapped in a life with no way out, suffocating in a sea of despair and disillusionment. Every day feels like a never-ending mental torment. The story of a woman who gradually becomes resentful toward her husband is not an isolated occurrence. It reflects the intricate and evolving nature of marital relationships as time goes on, especially as people enter their later years. Years of shared life bring about psychological and lifestyle changes in both individuals, which often result in a growing emotional distance between them. This raises the question: why do women, after so many years of marriage, start to find it unbearable to be with the partner they once loved so deeply? What causes older women to feel so tired of their husbands? One significant factor is the inequality in sharing family responsibilities. When they were younger, wives often tolerated and overlooked their husband's shortcomings out of love or out of a sense of duty to the children. However, as they age and their health begins to decline, the pressures of caring for grandchildren mount. At the same time, the weight of household responsibilities becomes more burdensome. Wives feel increasingly exhausted, especially when their husbands remain indifferent, living carefree lives without shouldering any of the load. The imbalance in the relationship gradually turns into frustration, creating a deep sense of dissatisfaction in the wife. Additionally, as women grow older, they begin to become more self-aware. With the daily hustle and bustle of work and child-rearing behind them, they finally have more time to reflect on their lives. They start to realize what they've sacrificed and begin to look for their happiness. During this phase of reflection, they often start noticing flaws in their husbands that were previously overlooked or dismissed due to love, busyness, or the demands of daily life. This shift is not a sign of lost love, but rather an evolution of maturity, as they come to understand what truly matters in life. The thought of divorce often crosses the mind in these situations, but it's never an easy choice, especially for older adults. For a woman who has been married for decades, divorce is not just the end of a relationship, it also brings a host of other concerns, such as the fear of loneliness, the implications for family reputation, and the potential consequences for the children and the wider community. Therefore, the question, should I get a divorce? Isn't a simple one. It involves balancing personal rights with social responsibilities. From one perspective, divorce might seem like an escape, a way to free oneself from suffering and achieve a more peaceful, spiritually liberated life. However, before jumping to that conclusion, it's important to ask whether divorce would truly solve the underlying problems. Discontent in a marriage can stem from many sources, such as feelings of neglect, emotional disconnect, or frustration due to unmet needs. These issues may not require a divorce to be resolved. Instead, they might be addressed through open communication and an effort from both partners to adjust their attitudes and behavior. Having an honest conversation might be the first step in rekindling the relationship and restoring balance. A willingness to listen and make changes could lead to a deeper understanding and an improved connection, without having to resort to ending the marriage. What can be done to preserve family happiness? Family happiness is not something that comes automatically or remains static. It is something that requires continuous effort and mutual understanding from both partners to maintain joy, especially as the years pass by. The first and perhaps most important step is learning to accept change. Aging is an inevitable part of life, not just in physical appearance but also in personality and emotions. As we grow older, we become more aware of our vulnerabilities, both physical and emotional. This requires a deep sense of empathy, patience, and forgiveness from both spouses. Instead of holding on to the expectations and habits formed in the earlier, youthful years of the relationship, both partners need to develop a new perspective on one another. They need to recognize that each person has their fears, concerns, and insecurities as they navigate the challenges of aging. Communication plays a pivotal role in sustaining a healthy relationship over the long term. Often, older couples may forget that even after years of being together, regular communication remains essential. It's easy to assume that the bond is unbreakable and that no further effort is needed. However, even the strongest relationships need constant nourishment. A heartfelt conversation, where both partners openly share their thoughts, feelings, and concerns, can reignite a sense of connection and remind them of the closeness they once shared. Expressing emotions and airing out unspoken worries allows both individuals to feel seen and heard. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. In addition to communication, spending quality time together is crucial. In the later years of marriage, when children are grown, and the daily burdens of work and parenting lighten, couples can find the space to rekindle their bond. Taking time to enjoy each other's company by trying new activities, traveling, or simply enjoying quiet moments at home can reignite the joy that may have dimmed over the years. When the rush of raising children is over, it is an opportunity to rediscover one another, trying new experiences that were perhaps once postponed due to other responsibilities. It's about building memories for the future rather than holding onto the past. Lastly, to preserve family happiness, it is important to acknowledge that marriage is not always perfect. Every relationship, no matter how strong, will face challenges, conflicts, and moments of frustration. The key is not to expect an idealized version of marriage, but to embrace the ups and downs that come with it. Resentment can build up over time, especially in long-term relationships, and this is something many older individuals experience. However, it's important to realize that these feelings don't have to signify the end of a relationship. Rather than viewing divorce or separation as the inevitable solution, couples should focus on finding ways to heal, forgive, and re-establish the connection that may have frayed over time. Love, after all, is not always a fiery blaze. At times, it is a quiet, enduring warmth that needs to be nurtured and reignited through patience and effort. Preserving family happiness is not about creating a perfect relationship, but fostering one built on mutual acceptance, understanding, and a willingness to keep working at it, together. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. If you found these insights helpful and meaningful, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our future videos. We strive to bring you stories and life philosophies that inspire positive perspectives and offer encouragement in your life journey. Now, let's listen to the inspiring story of Anne and John, a couple who have faced the challenges of long-term marriage, rediscovered their connection, and rekindled their love in their later years. Their story is not just a reflection of their enduring marriage, but also a valuable lesson in understanding, compassion, and patience, qualities that we can all learn from and apply in our relationships. Anne and John have been married for over 40 years, living through the ups and downs of family life and experiencing the joys and struggles of raising children, facing career changes, and navigating the natural shifts in their relationships. They were once a couple whose love for each other burned brightly, full of hope for the future. But as their children grew up and left the nest, their lives began to change in ways that neither of them fully anticipated. John, finding a newfound passion in his retirement, began spending more and more time in the garden, immersing himself in his plants. And, on the other hand, felt increasingly isolated and alone, as the once vibrant household began to feel empty and quiet. In the early happy years of their marriage, Anne and John were deeply in love. John, an ambitious engineer, and Anne, a woman with dreams of becoming a teacher, met at a school dance and quickly realized they were meant to be together. Their married life began joyfully as they built a home, welcomed 2 children, and established a stable family life. John worked hard to provide for his family, while Anne put her career on hold to care for their children and manage the home. Together, they shared countless beautiful memories, from raising their kids to taking family vacations. But as the years went by and the children grew older and moved away to pursue their own lives, Anne began to feel an increasing emptiness in her life. The vibrant, bustling household that had once been filled with laughter and energy was now eerily quiet. Their eldest son, Jack, went off to college, and their youngest daughter, Emily, moved to another city for work. The once lively home felt colder, and Anne could no longer ignore the growing emotional distance between herself and John. Though they were still physically together, their connection seemed to be slipping away. When John retired, he found a new passion in gardening. He spent hours each day tending to his plants, finding joy and fulfillment in watching his flowers bloom. But this new interest, instead of bringing them closer, seemed to widen the gap in their marriage. Anne, feeling abandoned, tried to reach out to John, asking him to help with small household tasks like fixing a leaky faucet or tidying up the yard. John, preoccupied with his garden, would reluctantly agree but soon forget or get distracted. This left Anne feeling increasingly invisible and sad, but she didn't want to rock the boat, so she quietly endured her feelings of loneliness. Even when she showed signs of her unhappiness, John failed to notice, lost in his world of gardening. Anne's quiet endurance eventually led her to question the strength of their relationship. Would they be able to bridge the emotional gap that had grown between them? Would they find their way back to the love they once shared, or was their marriage simply destined to fade away like the flowers in John's garden? It was a question that weighed heavily on Anne's heart, but she wasn't ready to give up just yet. Their story, like so many others, is a reminder that relationships take effort, understanding, and a willingness to adapt to the changes that come with time. One day, feeling a deep yearning to rekindle the warmth in her marriage, Anne decided to prepare a special dinner for John. She carefully selected dishes she knew he loved, thinking that a thoughtful meal would bring some change and allow them to spend more quality time together. She hoped that it would create a moment where they could reconnect and talk. However, when John arrived home, he briefly praised the meal but did not linger to enjoy it with her. Instead, he quickly retreated to the garden, resuming his work as if nothing had changed, and sat alone at the table, her heart sinking. She had put so much effort into creating a beautiful evening, yet it felt as though her efforts had gone unnoticed and unappreciated. She said nothing, but deep inside, a quiet resentment began to build, settling into her chest like a heavyweight. As the days went by, the emotional distance between them only seemed to widen. The turning point came when Anne became seriously ill. She was utterly exhausted and had to spend the entire day in bed, hoping John would notice and offer his help. But instead of tending to her, John continued his daily routine, going to the garden early in the morning and only coming inside occasionally for a quick drink. He was absorbed in his work, oblivious to Anne's suffering. It wasn't until the evening, as John was preparing for bed, that Anne, weak, quietly asked, "Did you notice I've been sick all day?" John was caught off guard, his surprise evident, but instead of offering comfort or expressing concern, he simply responded, "Oh, why didn't you tell me earlier?" and continued getting ready for bed without further thought. And felt a sharp pang of emotional pain, deeper than the physical discomfort of her illness. It was as though her heart had broken. The realization that John no longer seemed to care about her well-being or her feelings left her feeling utterly alone and abandoned in their marriage. Over time, the emotional void between them grew, and Anne began to feel as though she were living in a marriage without any real connection. She could no longer recognize the man she had once married, the caring, attentive partner who had shared her dreams and fears. Now, despite living under the same roof, it felt as if they were two strangers leading parallel lives. and came to the painful conclusion that if things didn't change, she would continue to live in a state of isolation, even though she was married. She knew she had to decide for her well-being and happiness. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. One afternoon, while taking a walk in the park near their home, and stumbled upon a group of women painting under the shade of a tree. They were members of a local art club, and they warmly invited her to join them. At first, Anne hesitated, unsure of herself as it had been years since she had picked up a paintbrush. But as she watched them with their easels, creating beautiful, expressive pieces of art, something stirred inside her. She realized that painting might offer her a way to express her emotions, a chance to reconnect with herself and her creativity. She decided to give it a try. As the weeks passed, painting became Anne's new passion. She found freedom in each stroke, joy in the colors, and a sense of accomplishment in every completed piece. She looked forward to the painting sessions, feeling more alive and inspired than she had in years. Every evening, she returned home from her art classes feeling rejuvenated, filled with a new energy and sense of purpose. But John, consumed with his gardening, remained oblivious to her transformation. He continued to focus on his plants, rarely even noticing how Anne's mood had shifted. It was as though he was living in a world of his own, detached from the changes in his wife. After months of feeling unseen and neglected, Anne decided it was time to have an honest conversation with John. One evening, as they sat down to dinner, she could no longer hold her feelings inside. "Do you realize that we're growing apart?" she asked quietly. John was initially taken aback by her words, but as he looked into her eyes, he began to understand the depth of her pain, and continued, her voice trembling as she spoke. She reminded John of the time she had asked for his help around the house, only for him to agree and then forget because his mind was always preoccupied with his garden. She shared the memory of the day she had been so sick, hoping for his support, but instead, he had remained oblivious to her needs. Each of these moments, seemingly small to John, had gradually worn her down, leaving her feeling more isolated and unnoticed in their marriage. John listened, his guilt mounting with every word. He had never realized how his neglect, even in its smallest forms, had hurt and so deeply. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't realize you were feeling so alone. I've been so wrapped up in my world. I've been selfish, and I never meant to make you feel this way." That conversation marked a turning point. John began to make an effort to change. He started spending more time with Anne, paying attention to her needs and listening to her more attentively. He even decided to join her in the painting class. While he wasn't particularly interested in art and had no talent for it, he recognized how important it was to Anne and wanted to be a part of her new life. He saw it as a way to reconnect, not just through the act of painting, but through sharing an experience that brought her joy. Their painting sessions became a special time for both of them. They not only created art together, but they also began to rediscover the connection they had once shared. John also made an effort to plan small weekend outings, something they used to enjoy when they were younger but had long since forgotten. Together, they explored new parks, towns, and restaurants, making new memories and rekindling the spark in their marriage that had seemed lost for so long. And, who had once felt neglected and forgotten, now found herself feeling seen, valued, and loved again. She realized that sometimes, to rebuild a relationship, it's not enough to wait for change to come. One must be willing to open up, to express feelings, and to take the first step toward healing. John, for his part, learned to be more aware of his wife's emotional needs and to respect the things that brought her happiness. Their marriage, once on the brink of fading into quiet loneliness, was now renewed through understanding, communication, and a shared commitment to reconnect. The story of Anne and John serves as a profound testament to the incredible power of communication, empathy, and mutual understanding in a long-lasting marriage. After more than 4 decades of sharing their lives, they faced numerous challenges, but they did not shy away from them. Instead, they confronted their difficulties head-on, choosing to grow and adapt together. Through their journey, they discovered the importance of truly listening to each other, opening up their hearts, and finding new ways to communicate. In doing so, they were able to rediscover the deep emotional connection that they thought they had lost over the years. Marriage, like life, is rarely without its hurdles. But for Anne and John, it was their unwavering commitment to one another, fueled by patience, love, and a willingness to understand, that allowed them to reignite the joy in their relationship. Their story is a beautiful reminder that even as the years pass, love can continue to blossom and evolve, provided both partners are willing to embrace change and grow together. Through their example, we are reminded that true love isn't about perfection, but about the shared effort to adapt, forgive, and continue nurturing the bond that brought them together. In life and marriage, it's not enough to simply celebrate the happy moments. It's equally essential to cultivate forgiveness, patience, and tolerance, especially during challenging times. Selfishness and neglect can easily erode the foundation of any relationship, but it's through empathy, active listening, and understanding that partners can build something far stronger. Let and John's experience inspire us to continuously nurture our relationships, keeping love at the forefront and allowing it to grow in new and meaningful ways. May you always have the wisdom to foster love, the courage to face challenges together, and the perseverance to maintain a happy, harmonious family. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you've gained valuable insights into the complexities of marriage, the challenges many couples face over time, and the importance of communication, understanding, and mutual effort in maintaining a loving relationship. What have you learned so far from the story shared today? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please comment below with one thing you've learned and how you plan to apply it in your own life. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support means a lot to us, and we're excited to continue bringing you meaningful stories and valuable lessons.